Peachvale Town, 1983. The air always smelled like damp earth and coal smoke after rain, and the loudspeaker by the commune office cracked out slogans the way old men coughed, insistent, hoarse, impossible to ignore. That was the morning my fiancé, Han Jiwei, was supposed to take my hand and walk with me to the registry office to get our marriage certificate. Instead, he walked past me like I was a fence post. He didn't even pretend to hesitate. He didn't even bother with a lie that had effort in it. He just said, flat and righteous, Su Chao is pregnant. She has no one. Su Chao, his widowed childhood sweetheart, cheeks always pink as if she'd just stepped out of a storybook illustration. Her husband, Jiwei's sworn brother, had died young, which made her untouchable in theory and irresistible in practice. In my last life, that tragedy was the umbrella they stood under while they did everything that needed no umbrella at all. But Jiwei didn't know. I had come back too. In my last life, I'd been the woman who swallowed her pride and became his ladder. I had shared hardship with him, eaten thin porridge, patched the same work jacket until it looked like it had lived 2 lives, and used my family's connections like a shovel to dig him out of every hole he jumped into. And when he finally became someone, when the city newspapers printed his name like it was a blessing, he leaned over my hospital bed, stomach cancer hollowing him out, and cried as if his regret could wash him clean. "I'm sorry," he said, tears dripping onto the blanket. "I shouldn't have married you. Chiao waited for me 50 years. She deserved everything." Then he amended his will, left his entire estate to Su Chiao's son. "A poor child," he said, with cerebral palsy, as if compassion could erase betrayal. I died angry enough to choke on it. So when I opened my eyes again and saw the calendar on the wall, 1 week before the registry office, I didn't cry. I smiled. This time, I would stop being the foundation under a man who only used me as a stepping stone. I went home and made a call. On the other end, my parents fell silent so long I heard my mother's breath catch. Then my father asked carefully, "Lin, did Han Jiwei hurt you?" My throat tightened, but my voice stayed steady. "No. He just showed me who he is. I'm willing to marry Rong Jianyu." Rong Jianyu, my parents' arranged match. A man from a family with resources and a reputation that didn't come from borrowing other people's luck. In my last life, when my business collapsed at the worst possible moment, it was Rong Jianyu who sent lawyers, who pulled my children back from the edge, who ignored gossip, and insisted my name deserved dignity. In my last life, I turned my back on him. In this one, I would walk to him with both eyes open. After the call, I headed to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy thread and soap. Just ordinary, things for an ordinary day, until I heard Ziwei's voice behind the stacked flour sacks. "Chiao, wait 3 more months," he murmured, low and urgent. "Lin's parents only have her. They'll give a fat dowry. Once we get it, I'll sell my job ticket, take the money, and go to South City with you." Su Chao's voice came soft as cotton. "Brother Jiwei, I'm dragging you down. Because of me, you have to marry a woman you don't even like." He pulled her into his arms like he'd been waiting for permission. "I already lost you once. This time, I won't let you go." And then she asked, as sweetly as poison, "But what about Sister Lin?" Ziwei laughed, actually laughed. "Her family is loaded. They won't miss a little." I almost walked out and clapped. Back home, I started packing. That was when Ziwei strode in, acting like the world still belonged to him. "Chiao's having complications," he said. "Doctor says she needs the city hospital to protect the baby. Her family's poor. We should use our banquet money first." "Fine," I said. He blinked. Clearly he'd come expecting resistance he could crush into obedience. "I'll stay with her at the hospital," he added quickly, testing me. "She has no one." "All right." His brows drew together. You're not upset? No, I said, calm enough to be cruel. Help her. Relief loosened his shoulders. Then he reached for my hand like a man collecting what he thought was already his. Your mother sent you money last time, right? I need another 1,000. I didn't look up. I don't have it. His face changed instantly. How can you not? You said your mum would send 2,000. My father stopped her, I said. No money, no dowry. Panic flashed, then anger. Then what's the point of marrying you? I finally raised my eyes. There isn't one. Let's break up. He went rigid. Silence tightened the room like rope. Then he tried to salvage it with a sneer. If you don't want me to go to the hospital, I won't. Just get me 200. I'll buy stewing hens and eggs for Chow. I cut him off. You're so eager to serve her, anyone would think the child is yours. He flushed red, furious. She's pitiful enough and you still want to ruin her reputation. I nodded once, cold. Do whatever you want. The wedding's off. I'm going back to the city. Right then, Su Chow appeared at the door, belly prominent, face gentle like a saint in a painting. Sister Lin, she said softly, it's my fault. Please don't fight because of me. Then she turned to Jiwei with eyes full of practiced misery. The doctor said I'm anemic. I need donkey hide gelatin. But I really don't have money. Ziwei's posture straightened like a man stepping into his true role. I'll go buy it. Red dates, brown sugar, eggs. Tonight. His gaze flicked to me. An order without words. So I gave him what he deserved. I smiled and I spoke loud enough for the neighbours passing by to hear. Borrow from the village if you want, but don't borrow in my name. That afternoon, he went door to door anyway, using my name anyway, because he still believed I would cover for him the way I did in the last life. I didn't. When the registry day morning arrived, I rode my bicycle to the educated youth outpost with my bag packed and my heart empty in the best way. Jiwei came, and behind him waddled Su Qiao in a bright red padded jacket, cheeks glowing, looking more like a bride than I ever had. Jiwei declared, shameless, Qiao never got wedding photos. I'm taking one with her today, for my sworn brother. I laughed, clear and sharp. Why not make it official? Take photos, get the license, marry her. Su Qiao covered her face and cried. Jiwei grabbed her arm, righteous as a judge. If you can't tolerate this, Lin, you're not worthy of being my wife. Perfect, I said. Then we're done. The village went quiet for half a breath, then exploded into gossip like oil hitting flame. And the money he borrowed? Someone shouted. Who pays it back now? Ziwei's face drained. He turned to me, pleading, You promised your mother would send it. I shrugged. That money was for my dowry. No marriage, no dowry, no dowry, no repayment. Then, slowly, sweetly, I pulled out a stack of IOUs from my bag and slapped them into his chest. You borrowed it, I said. You pay it. I swung my leg over my bicycle and pedalled toward the city road. The wind cold on my cheeks. My future finally mine. Behind me, Jiwei roared curses into the air, and Su Qiao's voice trembled, trying to cut the rope before it tightened around her neck. It was all Brother Jiwei's idea. It has nothing to do with me. It all went to buying you those damn supplements. Han Jiwei's roar ricocheted off the whitewashed walls of the township police station like a stone thrown into a well. Someone cursed back. Someone shoved someone else. The room turned into a boiling pot. Men's shoulders colliding, women clutching sleeves, the smell of sweat and wet cotton rising until even breathing felt like swallowing mud. I stood aside, calm enough to look heartless, watching the chaos with the detached patience of someone who had already died once because she trusted the wrong man. The creditors had followed us all the way there, old aunties with abacuses in their heads, young men with calloused hands, even the village matchmaker, who usually only carried gossip, now carrying rage. Pay it back. You borrowed in Lin's name. Police. She's the one who signed. Su Chao clung to her belly and cried like she'd been struck by fate itself. I didn't borrow anything. I didn't. I'm just a widow. Han Jiwei, trapped in the middle, looked from face to face like an animal cornered by hunters. For a heartbeat, his eyes landed on me, pleading, demanding, furious all at once, as if I could still be the door he kicked open when he needed escape. The officer on duty slammed his palm on the desk. Enough! One at a time. Then he looked at me. Comrade Lin, come in. Inside the small office, the air was colder. A calendar with a red star hung crooked on the wall. The officer's expression said he'd seen every kind of family drama in the world and still couldn't decide which was the most ridiculous. He asked me the questions twice. Where was my signature? Did I acknowledge the debt? Was I legally married to Han Jiwei? Had I authorized him to borrow money on my behalf? I answered slowly, clearly, like reciting a lesson I'd already learned in blood. We never registered our marriage, I said. We are not husband and wife in the eyes of the law. There is no joint marital debt. The officer frowned, flipped through the IOUs, again, and his brows rose. Your signature isn't here. Because I never signed, I replied. The second officer leaned back and let out a breath like he'd been holding in laughter. So he borrowed money using your name, without your signature, before you were even his wife? Yes, I said, and my voice didn't shake. And he planned to make me pay it back. Even the officer's patience cracked into disgust. He waved his hand as if swatting a fly. You can go. This has nothing to do with you. When I walked out, the noise hit me again. The crowd surged. Han Jiwei and Su Chao were boxed in by angry villagers at the station entrance, too scared to step forward, too ashamed to step back. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I watched him taste what it felt like when the world refused to carry him. That night, I still didn't get to leave. But the next morning, I finally boarded the train back to the city. The doors were about to close when I saw him, Han Jiwei, on the platform, running like his legs could undo what his choices had done. He chased the train as it creaked forward, shouting until his voice broke. Lin, I was wrong! I swear I was wrong! His hand slapped the air as if he could grab the carriage itself. I'll cut ties with Su Chao. I won't care about her or that child anymore. Stay, I'll treat you right, starting now. The wind stole half his words. The rest arrived at my window like ash. Treat me right? With his town projectionist job and a salary that barely bought oil and rice? Or with that mouth that only knew how to swear oaths when he wanted something? In my last life, he promised the same things. And every promise turned into a rope around my neck. I didn't even open the window. I just turned my face away and watched the platform slip behind us, shrinking until he was nothing but a dark dot, drowning in distance. When I stepped out of the city station, the air smelled different, drier, sharper, full of exhaust and possibility. I looked up, and there they were, my father, my mother, and Rong Jianyu. My father's eyes were rimmed red, like he'd fought sleep for a week. My mother slapped my arm so hard the sting rang up to my shoulder, and before I could even yelp, she yanked me into a hug, fierce enough to crack my ribs. You foolish girl, she hissed, voice trembling with anger and relief. Abandoning your parents for a man like that. Do you dare do it again? I swallowed. The child I used to be rising in my throat like a sob, but I forced it down. No, I whispered. Never again. My gaze met Rong Jianyu's. In my memory, he was always the boy from the compound, the one who didn't play with us much, but never allowed bullies to touch us. When we were small, he stood like a wall. When we grew older, he became the kind of man whose silence carried weight. During the years of being sent down to the countryside, I think I confused that wall with Han, Jiwei's stubbornness. I mistook a loud, needy man for strength because I was young and hungry for a story where love was earned through suffering. But suffering is not proof, and love is not a test you pass by bleeding enough. Our families already knew each other inside out. The match was arranged quickly, almost frighteningly quickly, like the world had been waiting for me to wake up and stop walking the wrong road. A month later, Rong Jianyu and I registered our marriage. The ceremony was held at the Rong family's ancestral home, courtyards layered like paintings, stone paths winding under old trees, the kind of place that made your footsteps instinctively soften. Their family name had been cleared, houses and shops returned, but my family wasn't lacking either. On my wedding day, my parents gave me half of our family fortune as my dowry. If Han Jiwei had ever truly understood devotion, he would have realized what he lost wasn't 2,000 yuan. He lost a life, where he could have climbed far higher if he hadn't tried to climb using my bones. After we married, I suggested Rong Jianyu enter the home appliance industry. I knew the wave that was coming. I knew televisions and VCD players would swallow the old projectionist era whole. In my last life, I had poured everything into Han Jiwei's gamble, and he rode the tide straight to the top. In this life, the tide belonged to Rong Jianyu and me. The Rong family's storefronts lowered our rent. My dowry stabilized cash flow. My maternal relatives backed logistics. We didn't just sell appliances. We built an empire with foundations thick enough to withstand storms. 2 years. That was all it took to become the undisputed kings of the South District. And Han Jiwei, he tried to copy his old script, but the moment I walked away, his script turned into a joke. He ended up with a mountain of debt. To pay it, he even persuaded Su Qiao to sell the 3 brick and tile houses her family boasted about like trophies. The house money cleared outside debts. Whatever remained, he clutched like seed money for his first pot of gold. Then fate, cruelly precise, snapped shut. Su Qiao went into difficult labor. The irony made me laugh when I heard it later. The supplements they'd used as bait to squeeze money from me. She'd taken too much. The baby grew too large. She nearly died on the delivery bed. The child was deprived of oxygen too long, born with cerebral palsy. Su Qiao hemorrhaged. The doctors removed her uterus to save her life. And when Han Jiwei heard she could no longer bear him more children, his face changed, fast. Ugly, real. That was the moment the fairy tale cracked, not because he had a conscience, because his investment no longer promised returns. From there, their true love became what it always was under the paint. 2 desperate people chained together, biting the same rope, blaming each other for the taste of blood. Zara, this really won't do. Aunt Celine Luo's voice stayed gentle, but her eyes had sharpened into that particular kind of smile adults used when they were trying to decide whether to pet you or press you down. She stood behind the sofa, hands folded neatly, watching me lounge with a sheet mask on my face like I had no bones. I lifted 2 fingers in a lazy salute. She took a breath, the way people did before they became reasonable out loud. You've been here nearly 3 weeks. She said carefully. Your bag hasn't been opened. Your teachers have already emailed. Your father is trusting me with you. If you keep drifting like this, you'll ruin your own future. The word future hit my chest like something heavy. In my last life, I lived inside that word. I bled for it. I called it duty, excellence, legacy. I thought if I became perfect enough, the company would have no choice but to love me. Then my father's will proved how childish that belief was. I peeled the mask off slowly and tossed it onto the coffee table like a defeated flag. Then I turned my head, blinking at her with wide, innocent eyes. Aunt Celine, I said softly, do you think my future belongs to me? Her expression flickered. Just a hairline crack. Then she recovered, laughing lightly. Of course it does. That's why you need to be disciplined. I sat up, tucking my legs under me. My hair spilled over my shoulder in that effortless way I used to hate in girls who didn't study. Now I wore it like armor. "Okay," I said sweetly. "So you want me disciplined? What do you suggest?" Her shoulders loosened, relieved I wasn't going to throw a tantrum. She moved closer, voice warm, persuasive. "We'll start with a routine. Wake up at 6, 2 hours of language drills, 2 hours of math, then school. No more spontaneous trips, no more shopping every day, and you'll hand me your phone at night. You need structure, Zara." Ah, there it was. Not structure, control. In my past life, she didn't need to control me. I controlled myself so thoroughly I was basically her unpaid employee with a daughter's face. This time, I tilted my head and smiled like a girl who'd never met consequences. That sounds exhausting. It's necessary. I let my gaze drift to the 2 children playing on the rug. Miles was building a tower. Little Winnie was humming to herself, stacking blocks with chubby fingers. Their faces were bright, innocent, and unbearably familiar around the eyes. My father's eyes. Aunt Celine noticed where I was looking. Her smile tightened for half a second, then softened again. "They adore you," she said. "You're their big sister." Big sister. In my past life, those words turned into a knife later. I looked back at her. "If I follow this routine, do I get something in return?" She blinked. "Something?" I nodded, perfectly serious. "I'm working hard, so I should be rewarded. That's how you taught me business works, right?" Her lips parted slightly. That tiny pause told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't used to me negotiating from the sofa. In her mind, I was supposed to be grateful, eager, obedient. But she still chuckled. "And what would you like?" I leaned forward, resting my chin on my hand, eyes shining with manufactured greed. "Freedom," I said. "A car on weekends, a card with a higher limit. And you can't report my daily schedule to my dad. You tell him I'm adjusting well. That's the deal." Her gaze sharpened again. "Zara, your father—" "I know," I interrupted gently, still smiling. "He's busy. He trusts you, which means you can either help me adjust happily, or you can force me and I'll hate you. And if I hate you, I'll cry to my father every night, loudly, publicly, pathetically." I widened my eyes, just a little. "You don't want that, do you?" For a moment, she stared at me like she was seeing a stranger wearing my skin. Then she laughed, the sound slightly brittle. "You're more spirited than I expected. America did that," I said, deadpan. She hesitated, then nodded as if she'd come to a reasonable compromise with a reckless teenager. "Fine," she said, "but you must attend classes, and you must keep up." "Deal," I chirped. That night, she sent my father a calm message. "Zara is adapting, a little playful, but fine." I knew because I watched her type it. When she finally went upstairs, I stayed on the sofa, letting the house fall into silence. Then I pulled my notebook out of my bag for the first time. Not my textbooks, my notebook. Inside were 3 neat pages I'd already planned in my head. First, I would play harmless until Aunt Celine grew careless. Second, I would learn every detail about this villa, every account, every name in her phone, every pattern in her schedule. Third, I would keep my mother alive this time. In my last life, I didn't know she was sick until it was too late. I didn't know she was being pushed aside until she was already falling. I didn't know how many storms she swallowed so I could stay focused. This time, I would be her storm. The next morning, I woke up at noon on purpose. I walked downstairs in a silk robe like a princess in exile and greeted Aunt Celine with a yawn. She looked like she'd slept badly. "Zara," she said carefully, "didn't we agree—" "I'm keeping up," I said lazily, taking a bite of my croissant. "Just in my own way." Then I smiled at her, bright and sweet, and added the line that made her hand freeze on her coffee cup. "Oh, Aunt Celine, Could you show me where Dad keeps the important documents? I'm curious about the company. Her eyes lifted to mine, and in that instant I saw it. Not concern, not warmth, fear, because she finally understood. I wasn't just coasting, I was coming for the truth. Aunt Celine, I yawned, around my straw, letting the ice in my drink clink lazily. I'm Dad's only child, sure. But you and the senior staff are still holding the company together, aren't you? Why should I grind myself into dust so early? She sat across from me with that careful, pre-approved smile, half mentor, half jailer. Because one day, you'll have to take responsibility. You can't live like this forever. I squinted at her, amused, then leaned in and dropped my voice to something warm, intimate, almost conspiratorial. Then you should mentor the younger ones, I said, wrapping my arm around hers as if we were close. That's a good thing, isn't it? When they grow up, they can shine. They can contribute to their father's business. I rested my head on her shoulder, coquettish, shameless, soft enough to make a knife look like silk. She froze. For a second, I saw it. Disbelief. Then a bright little flare of delight that she tried to bury under concern. It was the exact look of someone who had been holding her breath for years and suddenly realized the door was opening from the inside. Zara, she said carefully, if you really do this, I won't know how to explain it to your father. Her tone was worried, her face was relieved. It's fine, I murmured. Don't worry. I'm not quitting school completely. I waved a hand, lifted the shopping bags like trophies, and padded upstairs with a lazy yawn. Halfway up the stairs, I turned back. She was still standing there, eyes shining. I smiled, sweet as sugar, and walked into my room feeling lighter than I had in years. As long as she was happy, everything would move exactly the way I wanted. In my last life, a month after I arrived, I discovered her secret with my father and lost my mind. I threw myself into studying like a drowning person, clawing at shore, desperate to claw back the place that was supposed to be mine. This time, I refused to go mad. Let them celebrate. Let them relax. Let them believe I had stepped aside. Late that night, I studied my face in the mirror. It had filled out a little, soft, healthy, the faint spark still alive in my eyes. I smiled again. So this is what it feels like to spend money without fear, to sleep without guilt, to breathe without constantly calculating what I owed the world. A month slipped by like water. Winter settled in, quiet and pale. In my past life, this season had been the coldest period I'd ever known, cold in bones, cold in heart. But now I sat by the window wrapped in a small blanket, soaking up sunlight like a cat, nibbling biscuits and feeling warm. I became a creature of comfort. One afternoon, I curled into the armchair by the window in a pink fleece onesie. A blanket was draped over my lap. My feet were tucked into heated slippers. A textbook lay open on my knees, untouched, its cover weighing down the lid of my instant noodle cup like a paperweight. Steam drifted up from the rim, lazy and savoury, twisting through sunbeams. Old English love songs played softly from the speakers. Across the street, the neighbourhood still had Christmas lights hanging like tired stars, and the ginkgo trees stood bare, rigid silhouettes against the winter sky. They reminded me of my last life, barren, upright, joyless. I refused to be that tree again. I wanted to be a soft dumpling, flopping down wherever it was comfortable, living like I was allowed to be human. The door opened without a knock. I was humming and didn't notice until someone reached in and plucked my earbuds out with practiced ease. "Is this how you study?" That voice. My spine didn't stiffen. I didn't flinch. I didn't panic. I looked up slowly and met a pair of familiar eyes. My father, Mr. Leon Lee. He wasn't old yet. Full hair, crisp suit, that warm spring breeze smile he used when he wanted the world to believe he was gentle. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. I blinked slowly, set my cookie down, tilted my head, and gave him the sweetest smile I could manufacture. "Oh," I said brightly, "my dear father, you're here." Then I threw myself at him, clingy, practiced, an oversized cat launching itself onto a man's dignity. He froze for half a second, then caught me by instinct. "You've put on some weight," he blurted, before he could stop himself. "Have I?" I pouted, eyes wide. "Maybe it's because you weren't here. I missed you so much I couldn't stomach my books. I had to find other things to eat." He stared at me like he didn't know what creature I had become. After a moment, he patted my back, stiffly. "You still can't let your guard down completely." I laughed as if it was cute advice. "I've been following your words, eating well, sleeping well, spending well." I tugged his sleeve and led him inside like I was giving a tour. "And this is my closet." I slid the door open. It was packed. Vibrant dresses, brand new sneakers, limited edition bags, lined up like a shrine to indulgence. I opened a drawer to show him rows of anime figures, and even the instant noodle lid had character stickers. His eyelid twitched. "So," he asked, voice steady by force, "what are you mainly studying these days?" I put on a thoughtful face. "Art appreciation, acting classes." His gaze sharpened. "And?" "Oh, I am studying," I said with a bright smile. "I'm studying life, experiencing it firsthand." Silence, complexity, and disappointment tangled in his eyes like weeds. Then I hit him with the line that forced him to play the loving father in front of Aunt Celine. "Dad," I asked, innocent as a knife in a ribbon, "do you think I bought too much?" He hesitated. Maybe guilt prodded him. Maybe he didn't want to look stingy. "No," he said finally, "it's normal for a girl to buy a little more." Outside, Aunt Celine's sweet voice called, "Mr. Lee, dinner is ready." I hooked my arm, through my father's, and guided him to the table. 6 delicate Western-style appetizer plates were arranged like a magazine spread. Aunt Celine wore a light blue apron, makeup fresh, smile subtle, perfectly timed. "This," she said warmly while serving, "is Zara's favourite." I looked at the pasta, perfectly seasoned, then at her face, more exquisite than the dish. And suddenly, I almost laughed out loud because I remembered the bored afternoon when I'd quietly poked holes in every box of condoms hidden in her room. Have lots of kids, I thought. Let the inheritance split thinner and thinner until it becomes dust. The semester flew by. I lived comfortably. I ate when I was hungry, slept when I was tired, spent money when I felt like it. I collected plush toys, sneakers, cosmetics, an entire room of bright things, like I was rebuilding a childhood I never had. Before winter break even officially started, I asked my father for an early leave. "I want to go home." He looked stunned. In my last life, I was so tight with money and time that I only went home once every few years, always racing, always desperate. This time I wanted to slack off. Before leaving, I swept through the biggest mall like a storm and shipped box after box of gifts back home until it felt like I was moving houses. This for Grandpa, this for Grandma, this for Mum, this for Uncle, and 3 large boxes for my maternal grandparents, the ones who truly cared for my mother and me. At the airport, Aunt Celine saw me off, gentle and attentive. I unzipped my backpack and handed her 3 thick red envelopes with a smile. "Lunar New Year gifts?" I said. She blinked, surprised. 2 would have been plenty. "Why 3? She tried to return one. "This is too much." I smiled even sweeter, my eyes flicking down to her slightly rounded belly. "Aunt Celine," I said softly, playfully. "The little one in there needs one too, you know." She froze. A faint blush rose on her cheeks. In my last life, this child arrived later. In this one, earlier. Perfect timing. More heirs meant smaller shares. Smaller shares meant less power. After a beat, she smiled. "Then I'll accept." The moment my plane touched down back home, I dragged my suitcase and jogged toward the exit. I spotted my mother instantly, beige coat, scarf neat, makeup applied with care. When she saw me, her eyes crinkled with real joy, and she opened her arms. I slammed into her like a child. Her scent, laundry detergent, hand warmers, a faint winter air, hit me so hard my throat tightened. "My precious girl," she whispered, voice trembling. "You're finally home." Grandma stood beside her, beaming, thermos in hand, exactly what I'd asked for. This time, I would love the people who deserved it. That evening, I crawled into my mother's bed, clutching my blanket. "I'm sleeping with you," she laughed helplessly, but tucked me in anyway, smoothing the covers around me like she used to. I held her arm and whispered into the warmth of her chest. "If you want to date someday, it's fine. I've got your back." She poked my forehead gently. "Silly girl." "I mean it," I murmured. "Your happiness is what matters." The next day, on the drive to my paternal grandparents' house, my father spoke with a complicated tone. "Zara, if Grandpa and Grandma say anything unpleasant, don't take it to heart." I smiled faintly. He didn't call me by my old nickname anymore, not since the other child existed. The ancestral home was bright, crowded, staged like a performance. Uncles, aunts, relatives, everyone seated like they'd rehearsed their expressions. I greeted them politely. I ate. I sat with my mother afterward and cracked sunflower seeds, legs crossed, waiting for the show. In my past life, this was the moment they'd hint at bringing the precious grandson back into the family. They'd wait for my mother and me to lose face. But today, Grandpa cleared his throat, walked over, and handed me a red envelope. "This is for you." I straightened instantly, accepted it with both hands, and smiled with genuine delight. "Thank you, Grandpa." Then Grandpa smiled, eyes bright with expectation. "Your father's business is growing. How about we ask your dad to give you a little brother?" "Yes, please," I said immediately, eyes shining. I've always wanted lots of little brothers and sisters. The more, the merrier. Grandpa's eyes reddened with emotion. The relatives around us stiffened, confused. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. My mother even chimed in with a smile. "I have no objections either, Dad." Grandpa looked ready to cry from happiness, and just as the family's disappointment started to rise, my father walked in, impeccably dressed, smile fixed. "Dad," he said smoothly, "I'm happy with just one. Policies are strict. The pressure is immense." I blinked at him, innocent as a blade, and stuffed another handful of peanuts into my mouth. "What's the big deal?" I said cheerfully. "Dad, you can do what my classmate's father does." I chewed, swallowed, smiled. "Keep one on the side." "What are you talking about, child?" Grandma blurted suddenly, her voice bright with a strange kind of excitement. "I think Zara's idea is excellent." My father's smile froze. Grandma went on, as if she'd just discovered a brilliant investment opportunity. "It's not like we don't have the means. Planning ahead is wise. The family line should be prosperous. A bustling house is a blessed house." For a moment, the entire living room fell into a silence so clean it felt scrubbed. The relatives, those drama-loving aunts who usually leaned forward at the first scent of blood, shifted from anticipation to the expression people wore when they realized the clown wasn't on the stage. They'd been waiting for me and my mother to lose face. Instead, Grandma had picked up my "keep one on the side" joke like it was a strategy memo. I was just about to launch into an even more passionate speech about the more heirs the merrier when my father, for once, reached back and grabbed my wrist. His fingers were tight. His voice was smooth, too smooth. "Let's go," he said, cutting the air cleanly. "There's something at the company today. We should head home first. Company business. An excuse, a retreat." On the way back, my mother dozed off against the car window, exhausted by the performance and the bright lights and all the unspoken wars that happened at family dinners. I leaned back in the rear seat, calm as a cat, casually flipping through lipstick shades, coral, rosewood, something called innocent cherry. My father drove with both hands on the wheel. Then he spoke, tentative in a way I almost didn't recognize. Do you really want a little brother or sister? I turned my head, wearing my purest face like a veil. Of course, I smiled. The more, the merrier. Then I added, as if it were the cutest thing in the world. I even dreamed about it. A whole line of little brothers and sisters, all standing there asking me for New Year's money. It was adorable. The car jolted slightly. Not the road. Him. His knuckles went white around the steering wheel. His jaw clenched and released, like he was biting down on a scream. After a long beat, he exhaled and said, low and almost hoarse, "One is enough, more than enough." There was weakness in his voice, fear. Good. My vacation ended faster than a good mood. Before I knew it, I was back at the airport, suitcase rolling, my mother dressed so beautifully she looked like she had finally remembered. She was allowed to be cherished. Trendy hair, tailored coat, lipstick that didn't apologize. I'd told her plainly, instead of saving money for some man to spend on a mistress, spend it on yourself and make him regret it. She'd laughed then, soft, embarrassed, like the idea of living for herself was a luxury item. At the gate, I hugged her hard. "Take care of yourself," she murmured, eyes wet. "Don't worry, Mum." I kissed her cheek. Then I hugged my father too, just for good measure, just for the optics, just for the knife wrapped in velvet. "Dad," I said brightly, "you have to come visit me often." "Okay," he replied, voice thick with that practiced tenderness. "Study hard. Learn to be a successor sooner rather than later." I blinked at him, angelic. "Oh, Dad, I know. But if it doesn't work out, you can always have a few more kids." I shrugged. "Look at me. Do I look like someone who could be a successor?" "You little rascal." He reached out to flick my forehead. I ducked and laughed, light as air. As soon as I returned to the States, I delivered a mountain of hometown specialties to Aunt Celine Luo. She was delighted, praising me for being thoughtful, considerate, sweet. Every compliment was a brick she placed in the road to her own comfort. Life went on. I ate, slept, travelled, shopped. I even took a trip to Europe. I had my mother visit a few times too, pulled her into sunlight, into spending, into soft laughter. Then Aunt Celine's baby arrived. I was there. I washed bottles. I bought baby supplies. I posted well wishes online with a smile that looked sincere enough to fool the world. Sometimes I'd even say, very earnestly, I really wish they were my little brother or sister. "Aunt Celine," I'd coo, "raise them well. They'll grow up outstanding like you. Looks like Dad's company has its future successors." At first, she told me not to talk nonsense. Then she got used to it. But something was off. In my past life, my father acknowledged those children early. The rumours spread long before I turned 18. The boardroom learned to pronounce their names like inevitable facts. This time, he never made them public. Not when I graduated, not when I returned, not even when the years passed and the secret became too large to hide inside a villa. I waited. Nothing. At first, I was confused. Why wasn't the plot following the script? Then I shrugged. Slacking off was too enjoyable. I stopped caring how many illegitimate children existed, or how many women my father hid behind the curtain. I refused to struggle again. But the funny part, the less I struggled, the more anxious everyone else became. "Zara, you must study hard. You'll take over one day. You must be responsible." I nodded. Yes, yes, yes. Inside I laughed. Yeah, right. I even used studying marketing strategy as an excuse to squeeze more living expenses out of my father. I travelled while still living off him like a spoiled cat. My investments, made casually, guided by memories I shouldn't have, kept rising like obedient tides. Then graduation arrived. My father sat with a cup of tea, face full of expectation. Now that you've graduated, what are your plans? I clung to his arm, voice dripping honey. Dad, I don't have grand plans. I just want to stay home and live off you. You're loaded. His face fell, instantly stern. Absolutely not. You're my only daughter. If you don't take over, what happens to the company? I grinned. Come on, you're only in your 40s. If you live to 100, you've got over 50 years left. By the time I'm an old maid, you'll still be young. He was speechless, staring at me like I'd turned into a species he couldn't manage. I hugged a pillow and flopped onto the couch, pleased. And then it happened. The more I held my ground, the more they panicked. Aunt Celine cracked first. She sat on my sofa and lectured me with the gravitas of a prophet. Legacy, duty, family honour, national rejuvenation. I nodded while peeling an orange, half asleep. Then I said, softly, between bites, Aunt Celine, I'm going to get married someday. What could be better than being a good wife and mother? She stopped mid-sentence, said nothing, and left. That night, I heard her arguing with my father behind closed doors. It's your fault, he snapped quietly. You spoiled her. I leaned against my headboard and laughed until my shoulders shook. Fine. If they wanted to force me into the role, I'd accept it, like a princess accepts a crown made of thorns. My father appointed me assistant to the president. I took the post with a smile and decided I would become the laziest, sweetest, most useless heir they'd ever seen. I delegated everything, signed nothing urgent, dodged meetings by claiming I was studying or travelling. When relatives came to kiss the ring, I gave them projects, orders, profits, smiling like sponge cake. Keep benefits in the family, I toasted. My father grew more anxious each day. Aunt Celine rolled her eyes in fury, and I kept repeating like a lullaby, I'm so tired, I wish I had younger siblings. Then, finally, when I hit 24 and tried to quit outright, even the elders blocked my way. You can't resign. You're the only heir. Even after marriage, you're still Lee blood. My aunt even sobbed theatrically. Your father only has you. Then she dropped the most ridiculous line of all. I'll find you a good man. He can marry into our family. I twitched. So I went to my grandparents the next day and tossed a paternity test report onto their coffee table like a bomb. Acknowledge your grandson, I thought. Open the gate. Let the secret heirs in. The old couple glanced at it, faces impassive. Then they kicked me out, shoving a bowl of free-range chicken soup into my hands like they were dismissing a child with a tantrum. Zara, Grandpa barked. Stop fooling around. Go to work. No arguments. I stood in the wind, frozen. What in the world was happening? Why did no one want the grandson anymore? Yet everyone was terrified of me slacking off. And that was when I finally understood. It wasn't about blood. It wasn't about heirs. It was about control. And the moment I stopped chasing it, the whole family started chasing me. I was stretched out on a beach chair in the Maldives, a cooling mask slick on my face, sunglasses tilted just so, letting the sun turn my laziness into something that looked expensive. My phone buzzed, another message from the office. It was from Leo, one of the younger talents my father had finally dragged back into the company to learn the ropes. The same people everyone once swore would replace me. The same people now grinding themselves into dust to prove they deserved a seat at the table. I lifted my glass, took a slow sip through a straw, and replied with a smile that was genuinely warm. Ha ha, keep it up, young man. Your future is bright. Then I added silently in my head, the harder you work, the fatter my dividends get. There was a strange kind of joy in watching other people's ambition fund my retirement. In my previous life, I'd spent decades chained to a boardroom table, stressed to the marrow, trying to earn love, earn respect, earn my place, only to have everything sliced apart like cake at a party I wasn't invited to. This time, I didn't fight. I simply lived better than all of them. The Lee Group's growth had slowed compared to what I remembered from the old timeline. So what? My father still wired me money like clockwork. The company's will and trust documents were already drafted, and every rumour I heard said the same thing. Only one name sat at the top, mine. Meanwhile, my uncles and aunts were tearing each other apart. Their private feuds had become a daily drama, infighting, alliances, betrayals, secret deals, sudden health scares, surprise meetings that lasted until dawn. A palace built of spreadsheets, and everyone swinging knives made of smiles. And me, I collected packages. I lounged in the sun. I travelled the world. I answered their relentless calls with cheerful lies. Zara, come back and take charge. Can't. I'm on a wellness retreat. Zara, your father's hair is turning grey. Oh, tell him grey is fashionable. My father kept telling people I lacked responsibility, but he never stopped declaring proudly and publicly, "This is my only daughter." Eventually, he even fell out with Aunt Celine Luo, the woman who had once hovered around me with that gentle smile and a belly full of future leverage. In the end, the 3 children she'd hoped to elevate remained exactly what they were, hidden, unclaimed, untouchable. I stared at the endless numbers in my account and actually sighed, a little dazed by how ridiculous it all was. I was only slacking off. How did I end up winning so completely? That was the end of story 1. But don't go anywhere. Story 2 is sharper, meaner, and this time, the betrayal doesn't come from a boardroom. It comes from a family photo. In my previous life, my husband died in a car accident. I didn't even learn the truth at his funeral. I learned it at the insurance office when the clerk slid the paperwork across the counter and said politely, "Please have the beneficiary sign here." I glanced down. Beneficiary, Sienna Yu, his widowed sister-in-law. My hand froze over the pen like it had been dipped in ice. I went home hollow, the kind of hollow that isn't sadness yet, just shock that strips the world of colour. My fingers moved on autopilot. I opened his study. I stared at his desk. I touched his chair. I told myself there had to be an explanation. At 3 a.m, explanation still hadn't arrived, so I started tearing the room apart like a woman digging for her own spine. Books off shelves, folders thrown onto the floor, drawers yanked open. And then, behind the 3rd shelf, my fingernails caught a seam, a hidden compartment. Inside it was a walnut-coloured wooden box. When I opened it, my breath stopped. Hundreds of photographs, all of Sienna. Sienna on a street corner petting a cat. Sienna in an apron at the stove. Sienna under stage lights, smiling like she belonged to the world. Sienna travelling, arms wide, serene and radiant. Each photo had a date, a note, a confession. At the very bottom lay a birth certificate. The adopted daughter I'd raised, the child I'd bled my youth for, the little girl I'd carried across hospitals and debts and sleepless nights, was his. With Sienna, my vision went white. My blood roared so loud I couldn't hear myself breathing. The only thought in my head was savage and simple. I wanted to dig up his ashes and scatter them into the wind. I stumbled out of the neighbourhood like a sleepwalker, and that was when the world hit me back. A car, a flash, the sky flipping, and in the blur, I heard my daughter's voice, cold, impatient, adult in a way that made my soul shake. "This woman isn't my real mother. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with me. Don't call an ambulance. If she dies, we get the compensation sooner. Then darkness. Then I opened my eyes. A hospital room. The smell of disinfectant. A familiar face. Young again. My husband, alive, in his 20s, sitting beside the bed with my hand held like it was duty, not love. You have a concussion, he said, voice clipped. 2 days observation. Then you can go home. I stared at him, my throat scraping. What happened? He frowned, already irritated. You don't remember. You insisted on hanging lanterns at the company party. Fell. Hit your head. Memory slid into place like a blade. It was late 1997, the 3rd year of our marriage, the year he'd suddenly insisted we adopt a child. As he spoke, all I could see was that wooden box, those photos, that birth certificate. 30 years of my life, stolen and repackaged as someone else's love story. He leaned closer, voice lowering as if we were on the same side. We had it arranged with the orphanage director to finalise the adoption this afternoon, and now you've ruined the schedule. I looked at him, calm as a lake with something dead at the bottom. If you want to raise someone else's child, I said softly, go handle the paperwork yourself. I'm not going. His expression tightened. The adoption requires both spouses. What am I supposed to do alone? He paused, then tested me. You're not backing out, are you? I met his eyes. I'm not sure, I said. Then, clearer, no, I'm not adopting. Panic flashed across his face. But we agreed. You can't conceive. This will spare you all the injections, all the gossip. I cut him off with a small laugh that held no warmth. Since we're already in a hospital, let's do fertility tests. Tomorrow. For both of us. He jerked, too fast. Then, in a burst of panic, the truth slipped out before he could swallow it. If we can't have a child, it must be your problem, he snapped. He stopped. Too late. I stared at him, the silence stretching until it became a noose. You already what? I asked gently. Don't tell me you already have a child. His face flushed. Don't be ridiculous. You're imagining things. I didn't argue. I simply pulled the blanket over my head and refused to give him another word. The next afternoon, Sienna arrived, a bottle of royal jelly in one hand, oranges in the other, smiling like a saint visiting the sick. My husband sprang up as if pulled by a string. He took the bags from her hands. He poured warm water. He slid a stool behind her. His eyes stayed on her the way a starving man watches bread. Sienna turned to me, voice soft, sweet, laced with blame. How could you be so careless? Mum and Dad are at home, waiting for the baby. They prepared gifts. They're worried sick. I smiled faintly. Sister-in-law, I said, since you plan to stay a widow forever, why don't you adopt a child yourself? Mum and Dad love children. It would be perfect. Sienna froze. My husband jumped in, instantly protective. How could she raise a child alone? She's delicate, not like you. I yawned, as if bored. You're right. Raising a child is hard. I'm only 27. I still want to enjoy life. Let's talk about adoption some other time. He blurted, too fast. No way. I already made arrangements with the orphanage director. I smiled again. Then you and the director can proceed. I won't be involved. The room turned cold. Sienna tried to speak. As your sister-in-law, I should say something. I cut her off. If you know I won't want to hear it, keep it to yourself. Then I leaned back against the pillow and finished calmly, like sealing an envelope. If you're so desperate for a child, you and my husband can adopt her, raise her together, let her call you Mum and Dad. You three can be a happy little family. Sienna went pale. My husband's face twisted with rage. Apologize right now! I watched them like I was watching actors on a stage I'd already seen once. Sienna ran out, crying. My husband chased after her, throwing me one last poisonous glare before he disappeared into the hallway. I slipped my shoes on, quietly, and followed. By the time I reached the stairwell, my husband had already pulled Sienna into his arms, holding her tight, like he was afraid the truth would fall out of her mouth if he loosened his grip. His voice dropped to a whisper. "She's lost her mind. Don't stoop to her level. Don't cry." Then softer, almost tender. "I'll make sure she agrees to adopt our daughter. If she refuses," his jaw clenched, "I'll divorce her. It breaks my heart to see you like this." His voice was soft, practiced, like a man who'd rehearsed tenderness in front of a mirror. Soo Yunji's sobs finally slowed into faint, wounded hiccups. She hit his chest with her little fist, not hard enough to hurt, just hard enough to look like blame. "This is your fault," she whispered shakily. "If you hadn't been reckless back then, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have ended up trapped, and now we still have to deal with her." Her eyes were red, but her complaint was sharp. "And Jedja, she's been frail since the day she was born. The orphanage conditions are only average. If we delay any longer, what if something happens?" Qin Yufang's face tightened with guilt and urgency. He pulled her closer, as if his arms could erase consequences. "It's all my fault," he said hoarsely. "Jedja is my daughter too. I'm just as worried as you are." Then he frowned, the irritation returning like a reflex. "Shushin must have hit her head today. She's speaking nonsense. It's fine. I'll smooth it over tomorrow. Don't cry. I'll take you home first." Their voices drifted farther and farther away down the hospital corridor, fading into the hollow echo of footsteps. I followed at a distance, quiet as a shadow, and watched them reach the main gate. Under the yellow streetlights, they looked like a couple in a cheap melodrama. One man, one woman, one secret held between them like a shared heartbeat. They boarded bus 17. The route led straight to the residential block where Soo Yunji lived. Good. I turned around immediately and walked back upstairs. In my ward, I gathered my belongings with calm hands. The nurse tried to stop me. "You're supposed to be observed for 2 days. "I'm fine," I said, steady. "I just don't want to waste a bed." I signed the discharge papers, took my coat, and left the hospital. I didn't go home. Instead, I went to a small street restaurant, ordered 2 stir-fried dishes, and ate slowly like someone savouring a final meal before war. Around me, the city buzzed with ordinary life, laughter, clinking plates, the smell of oil and garlic. The world kept spinning as if betrayal were just another weather report. Only when night fully fell, after the nearby high school's evening study session let out and the streets thinned, did I finally head back. First, I went to my apartment. My in-laws had already gone to bed. I woke them up in a hurry, voice breathless, face pulled into panic like a mask. "Mum, Dad, something happened to sister-in-law Soo Yunji," I said. "Qin Yufang asked me to fetch you right away." The moment they heard Soo Yunji's name, they sat up as if struck by lightning. They had adored their eldest son. After his death, all that tenderness had poured into his widow. To them, Soo Yunji was not just family. She was a relic of the son they'd lost. They dressed quickly, hands shaking, worry spilling. From every movement, we hailed a taxi. 20 minutes later, we stood at Soo Yunji's door. It was already past 9. Before anyone knocked, sound reached us, muffled, unmistakable, intimate in the way a closed room can only ever hide for so long. A bed creaked, 2 voices tangled, a rhythm that didn't belong to grief or loneliness. My mother-in-law's face went blank. My father-in-law's jaw tightened so hard I thought his teeth might crack. My hand hovered in the air, poised to knock, then stopped. I took 2 steps back, inhaled, ran forward, and kicked the door open with a single violent strike. The lock snapped. The door flew inward. I stormed inside like a thunderclap and charged straight toward the bedroom. Clothes were scattered across the floor like shame tossed carelessly aside. I scooped up a man's trousers and shirt and hurled them out the window. A furious shout, a panicked scream. I snapped on my flashlight and aimed it like a weapon. The beam landed on two faces. My in-laws froze in the doorway, stiff, silent, as if their souls had been ripped out and held up for inspection. Chin Yu Fang, barefoot, hair a mess, sweater on inside out, like even reality had lost its order, and Su Yunji, dishevelled, clutching the blanket, eyes wide with terror. For a second, the room didn't breathe, then I spun and ran out, voice rising into the stairwell like an alarm. "Thief! Thief! Someone help! There's a thief!" My in-laws lunged to cover my mouth, but I dodged them, slipped out the door, and shouted even louder into the night. Lights flickered on in neighbouring windows. Doors opened. People poured into the corridor, some holding kitchen knives, some gripping fire tongs, some carrying rolling pins like shields. In neighbourhoods like this, scandal travelled faster than smoke. I waved frantically. "Come quick! There's a thief in there!" Within minutes, Su Yunji's home was surrounded by a crowd. Then, one by one, people stepped back out. Their faces twisted into the same expression, gossip and disbelief, outrage and thrill, like they'd just witnessed a tragedy and couldn't decide whether to cry or laugh. My father-in-law picked up Chin Yu Fang's clothes from the stairs with trembling hands. Then he slapped his son so hard the sound cracked through the building. "You worthless thing," he choked. "How could you do this to your own brother? After everything he did for you, this is how you repay him after death?" Chin Yu Fang hung his head, silent. My mother-in-law covered her face and began to sob, the kind of sobbing that didn't ask for comfort, only for time to rewind. They leaned on each other and stumbled away, old backs suddenly even older, and I stayed, arms crossed, looking at Su Yunji with the calm of a woman watching a mask fall off. Chin Yu Fang tried to regain control. He stepped forward as if he could still direct the scene. "Yunji, go back into the room," he murmured. "I'll talk to her." I slammed the kitchen knife I'd grabbed into the wall beside me, hard enough to make it bite. "Try," I said softly. "Whoever moves first, test my patience." Su Yunji stopped mid-step. Chin Yu Fang shifted in front of her, protective, teeth clenched like a man pretending he had honour. "This is my fault," he said, voice shaking. "If you want to punish someone, punish me. Don't hurt Yunji." I laughed, sharp, scornful. "A love story," I said. "How touching." Then I tilted my head, letting my voice turn gentle, too gentle. "Don't worry, I won't hurt her." I took a slow step closer. "I'll just make sure neither of you can ever hide again." His face darkened. "Shushin, what do you want? Ruining me ruins you too. Do you want the whole world laughing at you?" Su Yunji's eyes filled with tears. She tried the victim's tone, soft and trembling. "Shushin, I wronged you. I had a drink tonight. I thought of yumming, and I mistook Yu Fang for him. I swear it'll never happen again." She dropped to her knees. Chin Yu Fang hauled her up immediately, furious. "Why are you kneeling to her? If you have anger, take it out on me." I didn't look at him. I looked at Su Yunji, and I smiled. "Then explain this," I said lightly. "Jeja, the baby girl you're so worried about, whose child is she really?" Su Yunji's body went rigid. Her lips went pale. Chin Yu Fang's face flashed with panic. That panic told me everything. I stepped forward until I was close enough to see the tremble in his mouth. "The thought of you makes me sick," I said, each word clean and cold. "I want a divorce, and I want you to leave with nothing." He shook, still trying to escape. "It was only once," he insisted. "The child isn't mine." I exhaled slowly, like a woman steadying a blade. "Fine," I said. "Then we go to the hospital tomorrow. We test. We prove it." He yanked his arm free. I stared at him, unmoved. Actually, I said, voice calm as the knife in the wall, I don't care if the child is yours or not. I have two demands. Divorce, and you walk away empty-handed. I don't agree, he snapped, stiff with defiance. I nodded once, almost approving. Then we take this to your workplace, I said, and hers. Let your supervisors decide how much reputation you have left. Chin Yufang's shoulders sagged. Su Yunji clutched his sleeve, whispering his name in fear. He dragged a hand through his hair, face crumbling into defeat. After a long, trembling pause, he finally looked up. Fine, he said. I agree to the divorce.